It's about the stories of our children getting opportunity to go to college, and about mamas and daddies putting nickels and dimes and quarters together to pay tuition. It's about our stories. It's about the hardships and the pain and the suffering. It's about the protests and the marching. It's about the standing. It's about the legislation. It's about all of that. It's our story.
Witness to Grace, a testimony of favor, is a poignant, true life story that chronicles the remarkable journey of W. Franklyn Richardson, from humble and challenging beginnings to honored positions of power and global influence. Witness to Grace gives an intimate portrayal of the rise of one of the most respected religious and civil rights leaders of our time.
Well, good afternoon. It's Cyber Monday, and I want to welcome you. I am Jason Lawrence Turner, the senior pastor of Mississippi Boulevard Christian Church, Disciples of Christ in Memphis, Tennessee, and I am the founder and president of the Black Clergy Collaborative of Memphis, Tennessee. I want to welcome you to this virtual book tour. I'm excited to have with me Reverend Dr. W. Franklyn Richardson, the author of Witness to Grace, a testimony of favor, a new book that is out for which he is sharing his life story and certainly adding to the canon of African-American ecclesial leaders who have taken up to write memoirs of their life and of their ministry. And I'm so glad to have Dr. Richardson with me on this day.
Well, I'm delighted to be with you, Dr. Turner. You're one of my favorites, and I appreciate your witness and your ministry and the impact you're having on African-American people. And so it's a joy to be here with you today.
I'm grateful to have this time with you. I was reflecting back about how I first met you. Of course, my father and you had a relationship before I met you. And I think at his 25th anniversary at the World Baptist Center, you were the speaker. And the next morning, he assigned me to pick you up from the hotel and get you to the airport to continue your campaign for the presidency of the National Baptist Convention. And then from there, when I went to Yale Divinity School that first year, I came to worship at Grace. And you invited me to your home for dinner afterwards, put a little something in my pocket to help a starving seminarian. And then I'm thinking about my third year. I'd come to the completion of my studies, and I was at the state convention at Union Baptist in Stamford, Connecticut, Dr. Bob Perry's church. And you'd come to accompany Dr. Ralph Douglas West as he was preaching that evening. And I was sharing the dilemma I was in, graduating and not yet receiving a call to two churches. And you encouraged me to keep the faith and remain encouraged. And so I'm just thankful for the impact and imprint that you've made on my life and so many of my colleagues across the years.
Thank you, man. It's been a pleasure. I've been blessed by the intersection of the lives of you bright and promising young pastors.
Yes. And so we're excited. And I would love to hear about some of what you sought to convey in this awesome book. I've had a chance to read through most of it already, Witness to Grace. What was your heart that you were trying to convey in writing your memoir?
Well, I think it was the place where I had come in my life, where I felt that I wanted to pass on what my experiences were. I had learned so much. The mountains and the valleys have been great teachers, great mentors. The mountains and the valleys have been mentors to me. And I wanted to capture them for my own reflection, but also more importantly, I wanted to leave it as a signpost, a gift to the next generation, to those who are coming on now in ministry. And I wanted, and as I began to give it consideration, it was at the time when I had just come from major surgery. And I said, it's time for me to sit down and capture this. I don't want to pass off the scene and not make this contribution, because I do not believe that we have to experience everything in order for us to be successful. We can benefit from the experiences of those who preceded us, as I have done. And so that kind of drove me to it, and the opportunity to revisit my journey and as I began to think about it, the thing that became most dominant as I began to reflect upon doing this, I must have reflected for a year or so. The dominant feature of my reflection was that it was the grace of God that had sustained me in the ups and downs, and that I owed it all to him. No matter what my work effort had been, without his imprint, it would have been failure. And so I wanted to share that. And it came out of that. The book rose out of that kind of reflection and desire to pass it on. And in the process, I made some discoveries about myself, and which I shared.
So certainly the grace of God is that thread that's woven throughout the fabric of this great book. And hopefully there are those of you who are going to go out on today on Cyber Monday and purchase it. But one of the things that you're going to encounter when you read this, I think Dr. Richardson would share, and I hope he would just dive into a little bit of the benefit of receiving mentorship. You've been a mentor to me and so many others, but you begin to share some of the mentors who shape your own life in ministry. Would you please share some of what that has meant to you?
You know, I'm glad you raised that point, because I really believe, sometimes people ask me, so how did you achieve? It was the grace of God putting mentors in the right place on the highway to my future. And they came at the right time, and I was open. I was always hungry. Early on, I decided that if I could take my youth and know what the older preachers knew from wisdom, I could be guaranteed success. And so I was always diving, trying to find out what they knew. And so in my life, I've had mentors all the way through. And there's a litany of great mentors that I was privileged to intersect with. Had little to do. It was the grace of God, beginning with my mother for sure, but also my pastor in Philadelphia, James Hamlin. And then my dean at the undergraduate level at Virginia Union, who became the president, Alex James. And then on to Sandy Ray and Y.T. Walker and Gardner Taylor and T.J. Jemison, and just a plethora of great Earl Graves, great people who nurtured me and gave me the benefit of their experiences. And I am at the place now where I have no more mentors. And what becomes my obligation is to be a mentor. I'm not just starting it now, I've started on my journey trying to pass back. Because I believe that one of the things we have lost or are losing is the value of mentorship in ministry. Black pastors have always developed by the passing of the baton, by the sharing of experiences. All those people I just mentioned, all of them had mentors. They could point to people. And young pastors today, they need to keep this notion ingrained in their preparation. It will not all come from the book. It will come from sharing experiences and making application to your own journey in life. So I welcome being a mentor. Matter of fact, I have an obligation. I have an obligation to pay forward what I have already received by so many who now live in the silent city, who have deposited in me. And so yes, mentorship is critical and crucial, I think, to achievement.
If I could just further that conversation, I'm sure there's some seminarians, there's some young pastors who are watching this in this moment, might not have access to you, but there are persons who could be mentors in their circle. And I'm wondering, what advice would you give them as it relates to the selection of a mentor?
Well, I don't think my journey has been, you always have to consider the source of information, right? So you don't particularly choose mentor. You may, a person comes in your life and you begin conversation and it may evolve as a mentor. And sometimes mentoring is unconscious. the person who's being the mentor is not even conscious that he is mentoring. So sometimes it's not intentional. It's just like, he doesn't even know he's mentoring. He's just sharing his story, and it's not formal. It's very informal.
Yeah.
It's like when I was riding around in the car with Sandy Ray back in 1970, 75, 76, he said to me, "You're gonna be a great fellow." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Because you hang out with old preachers." So there's a sense in which if they give you the privilege to be in their presence, it's an informal kind of issue. It's not a formal, structured piece. Certainly there are structured mentees, seminaries provide that and so forth, but there is this informal mentoring that is critical to the success of young pastors, and you expose yourself by being in their presence. Their mentoring, they're not even conscious of their mentoring. They're just sharing it. So it's not so much you select, it's just that you make yourself available, bringing your mind and your ears to hear and to pick up fragments that can be applicable to you.
Yes, awesome. I know that was helpful to somebody who was watching. And I think as we journey through the book, one of the things that struck me was the moment when you were asked to give remarks on the funeral service for Dr. Sandy Ray. And at first you kind of stepped back and said, "I don't know if I'm ready particularly for that." And his wife, his widow, said to you something to the effect of never to miss the power of a moment.
It's been very important in my reflection. It hit me like a hot cup of water. I mean, it was just, it was almost like a punch, gut punch. She said, I was hesitating. I was saying, "Ms. Ray, I don't think I'm, there's so many preachers in the world. Dr. Ray's such a great man." I had been like an escort to Dr. Ray, and I was responsible for putting together his book and Power of Attorney with Broadman, delivered to galleries. And I had a close relationship with him. But there were pastors who I admired and who were highly esteemed, who would have welcomed an opportunity to speak for the ministers. And I said, "How can I compare to those guys?" I mean, I said, "Ms. Ray, I can't." She abruptly hushed me down and said, "Do you know the importance of a moment?" And boy, that just hit me. And ever since then, I realized that we have to pay attention to the moments that God sends in our lives. A moment is pregnant for memory, but it is also prevalent for production. And so we don't underutilize moments. And so what she was saying to me is, you have an opportunity here to expand your ministry, exposure, and you're talking about you're not capable of it. She had no patience with me.
Powerful. I'm blown away at your transparency. You don't hold back in this book in sharing not just the peaks, what you also did with the pits, and how even God was in the midst of those moments.
Yes, sir.
And I think I would love to hear, you start out the book talking about the experience of running for the presidency of National Baptist Convention and not winning. But yet, what I've come to appreciate about you in the past number of years is that this gave an opportunity for you to expand your impact and your influence in more of an ecumenical sense,
right?
With the Conference of National Black Churches. And I think there's probably much for you to say in this time where denominations are trying to rethink themselves and possibly retool themselves. What do you think the role of denominations will be in the post-COVID world? Based upon your experience thus far in fostering that ecumenical movement in the Black church?
Well, let me say that denominations are extremely challenged. And I have firsthand insight because of my work with the Conference of National Black Churches. All of the 7 historically Black denominations, their leadership is involved in it. I'm also on the National Council of Churches board. And what I'm seeing is what I talked about when I ran for president of the National Baptist Convention, that in order for denominations to exist, they got to become servants of churches and not churches servants of the denomination. Mm-hmm. That is what has threatened denominations, certainly threatened the Baptists. The Baptist pastor and churches have walked away from the conventions because they do not see a service benefit to their being a part of it. And until the denominations can provide assistance and value to being a member, it will continue to diminish. That's going to be, it's hard because many of our denominations are stuck in an old model that will not allow them to step out. And it's a dinosaur model. It's a dying model. We cannot live in this world of technology, in this world of quick information, in this world of access to information. We cannot be productive in that old model. We've got to change, because the things that made the conventions grow, I'm speaking from the Baptist now, what made them grow are non-existence. We don't need fellowship anymore. We don't need a convention to have a vacation. Civil rights has brought that, eliminated that. We don't even need a convention for fellowship. We don't need a convention for credibility, because churches have their own credibility. We don't need them for foreign mission. Churches do their own foreign mission. We don't need them for publication. One of the things that called us together was publication. Now churches can write their own Sunday school leadership they choose. The pastor can. They train pastors. They have expert access to the technology, and they can do their own. And then there are competitive forces out there seeking the pastor's resources and attention, wanting to provide service. So the denominations is to understand that it's competitive to the forces that are trying, and it is accountable to those who are members. Fortunately, the delay in the demise of denominational organization will be delayed in connectional churches because of their structure. But in non-connectional churches, Baptists, they will not have the luxury of staying connected, because the very origin and idea of Baptist church is independence. So, it's free to be whatever it wants to be, whatever the congregation wants it to be. So it's not in giving. So association to a convention is in fact voluntary. There's no present, no real estate transaction, nothing, no contract with the pastor, nothing. It's purely, and if it's not driven by meeting a need that cannot be met or making me a better pastor or a stronger church, it will have no attractive. It won't be attractive. And so that's what we are facing in denominations. I don't know where that goes. I don't know. What I do know is that pastors, young pastors and pastors who are new, are finding their needs in other places where the convention doesn't provide it. There are conferences all around the place now. There are all kinds. As a result of need, there evolved this whole conference culture that is a part of Black religion today. So I think they're really challenged. There's going to be, and they're not. And to tell you the truth, there's not an atmosphere for welcoming new thinking, and that will be a peril.
We have the opportunity. You allowed me to serve as the Secretary Treasurer of the Board of the National Action Network, I share that in sharing that beyond the work that you've done, Grace Baptist in Mount Vernon, beyond the work you've done, the Conference of National Black Churches, you continue to have influence in various other spheres. And I think that this is something of note. And I guess I would love to hear you kind of speak about not only your thought process. We know it's the grace of God that has kind of aligned certain things, but how does the minister in 2020 and beyond prepare themselves to have a broad-reaching ministry that, yes, can meet the moment of their church, but also have an impact beyond the four walls of the congregation they serve?
Well, I think that it grows out of a preacher understanding his or her appetite or having an appetite for maximizing potential. And so all the things that I have done, involved in, have always emerged from the central place of a call to be a pastor. So whether I'm working with the National Action Network on social justice issues, or whether I'm working at the Virginia Union on the college, or whether I'm working with the Conference of National Black Churches or on corporate boards, all of those things for me emerge out of my call to ministry. Not just a call to preach, but a call to ministry. And so what I find myself doing, whether I'm on a corporate board or not, I'm always there advocating for the least and the last. My role is always not, I'm not trying to be a corporate executive. I'm trying to make corporations sensitive to their obligation to Black people who spend their money with them, to make sure those same Black people can get to the C-suite and have access and opportunity. So my engagement flows out of that kind of call to ministry, an advocate for justice and equality. My involvement at Virginia Union is really repayment for what they did for me, and I want that institution to be stronger. And it comes out. So when I'm involved in these multiple kinds of things, my congregation provides the platform out of which I operate. And my congregation, fortunately, in these 45 years, has seen all the things I've been involved with as them being involved. They have never seen me as if I had another job, right? Whether I was the secretary of the convention for 13 years, it was always we the secretary. Or as chairman of the board of Virginia Union, they have been every step of the way there. It's been like that. The National Action Network, I've been in nothing that the congregation has not been partnered with me and have not provided me the opportunity and the independence to do that. So my capacity to spread is owing to a cooperative congregation that we have nurtured and trained and developed and made the congregation understand that we had an obligation to more than ourselves, whether it's in the food pantries, 500 people we feed every week now, or whether it's in corporate engagement by challenging corporations that I've served. So, it's all evolved out of my ministry. I never saw myself doing something on the side. Yes. If it was on something on the side, I wouldn't do it. If I could not justify it being as an extension to which God had called me, because my success has come from ministry. And I never needed to supplement, because God always opened the door for me to do ministry and do well.
I want to share this with those of you who are watching, that today, if you purchase Witness to Grace, that a portion of the proceeds are going to go to historically Black colleges and universities. And I would, Dr. Richardson, you could just speak about the importance of HBCUs. I'm an HBCU alum. My wife is, my parents, my in-laws, HBCU, my brothers, all of us have benefited from HBCUs. Could you just speak from your vantage point as the chair of the board of Virginia Union University of the importance of HBCUs?
Well, I guess my concluding statement I'll start with before I start. Without the HBCU in my life would be drastically different from what it is. And I know when I say that, I am not speaking just for myself, but there are thousands across the 150 years who have that same testimony. I illustrate that truth by telling you this, that when I came to Virginia Union, I had been miseducated by the local public schools. I had been socially promoted. And at the 10th grade, my counselor told me I was going to go to college. He said, "You're not college material." I was defiant of his prediction and ended up going to college, going to West Philadelphia Community College, and flunked out. That was devastating to me. I didn't understand why I flunked out. I had gone through 12 years of high school, and I accepted my call to ministry. My pastor, I said, "I want to be prepared for ministry." He said, "Well, I'll tell you what." I said, "I flunked out." He said, "That's all right. You apply to Virginia Union." I applied to Virginia Union, and they gave me a conditional matriculation. Wow. Because they discovered that I had a reading impairment. I couldn't read. Even though I had come through 12 years, I wasn't college material because they hadn't prepared me to be college material. And so they put me in the remediation for a year, said, you can pass, you can stay. Short story is I stayed, ended up going to Yale, and then on to earn a doctorate, and then around the world for the World Council of Churches and for the National Baptist Convention. And 35 years later, the same kid who was a matriculate, conditional matriculation at the university, now my signature is on every degree of those who graduate from it. Now that is the grace of God.
That's a testimony of faith.
That's a testimony of favor, Doc.
I would just, as we look at this book, what are some of, if someone purchases this book today, Witness to Grace, what are some of the themes that they're going to come across as they read your life story?
What I would hope is that they will not see this book as just simply a preacher writing the preachers. This book is really about young people recognizing that no matter where you start, it is not where you have to finish. It's about taking advantage of every opportunity that comes and climbing over obstacles that are certain to come in your life. It's about hopefully people who are not pastors, who may be corporate leaders or professors or teachers or people working in our communities. It's to inspire them to see the grace of God in their lives. All of us have grace in our life. And I'm not talking about grace in the narrow sense of salvific grace. I'm talking about grace in the broad sense, like the sun rising and the moon dancing against the night, wind brushing against our brow. It's all evidence that what we rely on in life is a gift of God's grace. And so I would hope that would be where people find themselves in this, in the reading of this book, that they see themselves. And then in the book, I also talk about the whole issues of justice that affect our people, how we must be determined to be relevant and engaging. And so I hope that the book is more than a book to pastors. While it is that, it is also a book where young people can reflect on their ambitions and others can see the favor that God has made in their lives.
I want to, you bring up justice.
Yes.
I recall you speaking this summer at the march in Washington. And one of the things that you honed in on was this notion of, after summer of protest, marches, civil disobedience, some unrest, you brought into focus that if we don't vote, all of this would be a sham. Mm-hmm. And so now we are post-election, and there's going to be new leadership, January 20th, 2021. How does the fight for justice take shape in an era where there's a Biden presidency, but there's a Kamala Harris as vice president, but still 73 million people voted for the outgoing administration? What is going to be the fight for justice?
Well, the fight for justice will continue. We have not come to achieve. We have not got to our destination. We're still on the journey. Progress is being made, but we're still on the journey, and we have a distance to go. I hope we don't have as far to go as far as we come from. But there's a distance before us. Part of what will be our calling in this Biden administration is to remain stewards of our ambition for equality and justice, to not sell out, to not be complacent, that's one of the things we did as people when Obama was president. Mm-hmm. We put ourselves on relax, and we said, oh, we got a Black president, the problems are over. The problems continue. Now with the 73 million people, I think it's important to get an analysis of why 73 people voted for the former president. They voted, first of all, they voted because many of them were attached to down ballot candidates. They tolerated the top of the ticket because they were committed to the down ballot campaign, which we saw. We saw that Republicans won in Senate races and housing races and so forth because the people were committed to them and they didn't vote for Donald Trump. We saw a lot of that. In states he lost, the Republicans won the down count. Secondly, there are people who are loyal to the Republican Party. There's a core that's loyal to the Republican Party that never would see themselves as voting Democratic. So it's not like they were totally, all of them are hate mongers. They had other issues that drove them to their decision. And they didn't care, and they did not make, for them, racism was not a priority in their decision. That's all, it wasn't a priority. And so we ended up with 73 million, 75 million, whatever it is, people who voted for this administration, but it wasn't that they embraced hate. I think we'll do ourselves a disservice if we give hate that kind of victory. They did not embrace hate. They were just passive. They were tolerant, and they didn't see how it affected them. And they voted their own interests. Many of the people voted because for him because of the economy. The economy was good for rich people, and the higher up you were, the more successful the economy was to you. So that was a part of it. So there's a multiplicity of people who on that side weren't hate mongers, weren't racist, but had other reasons that caused them to vote. The other thing I think is important to understand that everybody in the 80 million is not against racism. They voted for their interests too. People on the Democratic side. Everybody on the Democrats ain't for inclusion. They're probably more of them than they are Republicans. But to say, so we gotta be careful when we talk about blocks. We gotta be analytical and see. Now it's in that information that healing is possible for our nation. That we understand that people had other reasons, that people had other, on both sides. But now it's a time to try to find a place of healing. I think Joe Biden is uniquely prepared to escort that season of healing. But even if the nation heals, we'll still be Black people marginalized, and we'll still have to fight for healthcare and housing and jobs and access. We're gonna still have to fight this fight.
If I could push a little bit further, one of the things that one of the slogans that was used was redeeming the soul of America, something that was taken from SCLC a number of years ago. Right. But I think one of the most problematic voting blocks was that of white evangelicals.
No question.
And so when I think about redeeming the soul of America, I'm also thinking about redeeming the soul of the church.
Yes.
What do you think? And I know we oftentimes just speak of the Black church, but what do you think needs to happen to redeem the witness of the Christian church in America?
It's a contaminated witness. The white church has a lot to repent for, and I don't know if they're up to it. They got racism, slavery had the evangelical and the white church, not even just evangelicals, of Catholics, as co-conspirators to slavery. And then when Blacks arrived on this continent, the evangelicals, the white churches co-signed on slavery, added scriptural authority to the condition of enslavement, and gave the people in their churches who were plantation owners and oppressors a pass, more than a pass, to reinforcement. And across these years, the evangelical witness has never repented for its participation in slavery and in the enslavement of Black people. Not only that, they have continued to provide hospitality to white supremacy and to racism and hate. So there's a long way for that segment of Christian organization, not Christianity, because the Jesus that they know, I don't know that Jesus. That's a Jesus I don't know. That Jesus to me is something wrong with that Jesus.
Right.
I don't know it. And it's not the Jesus that I read in the New Testament.
Yes.
So there's a long road. I don't try there. I'm a participant in, I've led the Conference of National Black Churches in the last 5 years in a whole dialogue on race and reconciliation. So I'm a participant in trying to get us to a place of healing, but it requires confession, truth-telling, and repentance. There cannot be healing with cheap grace. There's going to be the struggle of owning our faults, and thank God that in Christ there's always opportunity for new beginning.
Yes.
And that's the greatest thing that the evangelical church has going for it. That in Christ there's always opportunity for new beginning.
Wow. I think this is a great way to kind of tie a bow around our conversation. I've been just grateful for this opportunity to converse with you, to have you on to talk about this wonderful new book. Dr. Richardson, are there any specials with the holidays approaching that you have for this book?
Well, two things that have been my things. Well, along with the publisher, the book on Cyber Monday will sell for $16.95, which is down from $27. It will be available. We're interested in making a high circulation. And as we said, 10% of the proceeds will go to historically Black colleges. So the book will be available. We encourage you to buy it on Amazon because that's where we are focusing this campaign. I want to encourage you to know that what we're trying to do is raise another Black book to a place of bestseller, Amazon, bestseller, New York Times. We're trying to raise another Black book to that place. And this book is one of that we're offering. But it will take the partnership of your viewers and of my colleagues to make it happen. And I pray that it will.
So I want to encourage you all to go out, pick up your copy of Witness to Grace, a testimony of favor by Dr. W. Franklyn Richardson. It'll bless your life, whether you're a member of the clergy or not. This is a book that you want to read. It will inspire you. It will motivate you in your sojourn through life. Dr. Richardson, thank you for allowing me to spend this time with you on today. And we pray God's blessings upon you.
Thank God and bless your family on this Thanksgiving, and may God continue to keep you strong.
Thank you.
Witness to Grace, a testimony of favor, is available for purchase. Get your copy today from Amazon.